What if I told you that right now, in this very moment, millions of people are quietly surrendering, not because they're not smart enough, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they lack one thing: mental strength. Think about it. We scroll endlessly, comparing our lives to filtered images. We envy what others have while doubting our own worth. And then we sit there, confused, asking ourselves why we feel so drained, stuck, or lost. We chase comfort, yet comfort leaves us exhausted. We avoid pain, yet pain sneaks into our daily lives in 100 subtle ways. The truth is uncomfortable. Comfort itself is killing us slowly. Meanwhile, struggle, though brutal and unwelcome, carries within it the seed of real strength, the seed of transformation. And here's the twist most people never realize: the ancient Stoics already knew this. Long before smartphones, social media, or self-help books filled our shelves, they understood a truth that still cuts through the noise today. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That's not just a quote to decorate a poster. That's a weapon, a shield, a way to walk through chaos without losing yourself. Stoicism doesn't promise you an easy life. It shapes you into someone unshakable, someone who can endure storms without crumbling. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this video: 8 brutal Stoic laws. Not shallow inspiration, not fluffy feel-good lines. Real principles, forged in the fire of ancient Rome, tested by warriors, emperors, and ordinary men who lived through wars, betrayal, illness, and loss, and yet discovered resilience stronger than fear. These laws are as raw and relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. But before we begin, I need you to pause for just a moment. Don't watch this passively like background noise while scrolling on your phone. This isn't that kind of video. This is a wake-up call. If you're truly serious about growth, engage with it. Hit like now. Drop a comment when a truth hits you hard. Share it with someone who needs this reminder. Most importantly, don't skip ahead, because missing even one of these laws could mean losing the clarity or courage you'll need in the exact moment life tests you. So, let's step in. Let's begin with the first law, one the Stoics lived by every single day: embrace discomfort like a friend. We've been raised to run from pain, to avoid it at all costs. But the Stoics taught the opposite: run toward it, with eyes wide open. Think back to your own life. Was your greatest moment of growth born in times of comfort, when everything was easy and smooth? Or was it born in the fire, when life punched you in the face and you had no choice but to rise or stay broken? Marcus Aurelius knew this well. He faced wars, betrayal, illness, and unimaginable pressures as emperor. Yet through it all, he chose calm, resilience, and inner strength. He didn't hide from discomfort. He welcomed it. He let it mold him into steel. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. His words weren't poetic fluff. They were law. Every obstacle is an opportunity to sharpen your will. Every delay is a test of patience. Every rejection, a teacher of resilience. Modern life tells us, avoid pain. Stoicism whispers back, train for it. That cold shower? It's a test. That difficult conversation you've been avoiding? It's a path. That workout when your body begs to quit? That's where your character is being carved. And this is only the beginning. The Stoics believed that when you deliberately choose controlled discomfort, you're not punishing yourself, you're preparing yourself. You're training for the chaos that life will inevitably bring. Because when the storm finally hits, and it always does, you won't be caught off guard. You'll already be built for it. Take Seneca, another great Stoic, as an example. He practiced sleeping on the hard floor, eating simple and tasteless food, and wearing old, rough clothing, not because he despised himself or life, but because he understood the value of self-training. Why would a man of wealth and power choose that? Because he knew this. When life strips away your comforts, and it will, you won't crumble in shock. You'll be ready. Here lies the truth most people avoid. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It reveals who you really are, and even more importantly, who you are becoming. Think about it. Every time we dodge small pain today, we're only guaranteeing bigger suffering tomorrow. But if you lean in instead, if you walk straight into that fire with awareness, something incredible happens. You stop fearing the pain. And that moment, that shift, that's the beginning of freedom. From now on, look at discomfort as your sparring partner. Sure, it might bruise you. It might push you to your limits, but at the same time, it's building you, molding you into someone unbreakable. So here's a challenge. Choose one small discomfort today and do it. No debate, no hesitation. Take that cold shower. Start that hard, honest conversation. Sit with your boredom instead of escaping it. Remind yourself, over and over, this is how warriors are forged. Because the only way to become unstoppable is to stop running. And I want you to lock this in with action right now. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Discomfort is my training ground. Now let's move forward. Number 2. Stop being owned by your emotions. Ask yourself honestly, how often do your emotions control your entire day? Someone makes a rude remark and suddenly you snap. Plans fall apart, and your whole mood collapses with them. You feel lazy, so you give in. You skip the gym. You skip the work. You abandon the discipline. It happens to all of us. But here's the brutal truth. If you are ruled by your emotions, you are a slave to them. And the Stoics believed that this kind of slavery is worse than chains on your wrists. Epictetus, who himself was once a literal slave before becoming a Stoic teacher, said it best. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. They can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by them. Let that sink in. That stranger who cut you off in traffic, you just handed them your peace. That breakup, you handed it your identity. That single rude comment online, you gave it your joy. See, Stoicism doesn't demand that you suppress or ignore emotions. It teaches you something far more powerful: to observe them, to understand them, and then to respond with reason instead of reacting blindly. That's the difference between a child and a Stoic. The child throws a tantrum when the world doesn't bend their way. The Stoic, on the other hand, sits calmly in the middle of the storm and thinks. Even Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, struggled with this. In his private journal, later known as Meditations, he reminded himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. We've seen that emotions can only control you if you allow them to. And it is you who holds the power to reclaim that strength. At any moment, this is the kind of control we rarely talk about. The power to stay unshaken by things that don't deserve our energy. And yes, it's harsh, because once you realize this, you no longer have the right to blame anyone else. You can't say, "He made me angry," or "She ruined my day." No, the truth is, it all comes from you. That outburst, that hasty reaction, they were your choice. But here's the liberating part. You can always choose again. You don't have to be a slave to your emotions. You can feel anger without acting in anger. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel sadness, but not drown in it. That is emotional strength. That is the freedom the Stoics spoke of. Next time you feel triggered, try this. Pause. Don't react immediately. Take a deep breath. Then ask yourself, is this feeling useful to me right now? After that, respond with intention, not with impulse. This isn't about turning into a cold, emotionless robot. This is about being in control. And when you are no longer manipulated by emotions, you become clearer, calmer, stronger. You step into situations with steadiness. And people notice. You're no longer tossed around by every little thing. You're rooted, grounded, and in today's emotionally chaotic world, that stability is rare, magnetic, almost unstoppable. Real growth begins when you stop being the puppet and start being the master. Rule number 3. Stop expecting fairness. Let's be honest, life owes you nothing. One of the fastest ways to suffer is to cling to the idea that life should be fair. Let that sink in for a moment. You work hard, but the lazy one gets promoted. You love deeply, but they walk away. You do the right thing, yet still get punished. And then comes the anger. The voice screaming inside, "This isn't fair." But the Stoic truth is simple. Fairness is just a myth we create, not a law of the universe. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You can commit injustice by doing nothing." Even he, the Emperor of Rome, witnessed injustice every single day. Yet instead of whining, blaming, or falling into despair, he anchored himself in one unshakable belief. Life is not about fairness. Life is about strength. The Stoics never expected life to treat them gently. They expected pain. They expected loss. They expected betrayal and inevitable change. And because they expected it, they were ready when it came. Let's be brutally honest, fairness sounds beautiful. But if you cling to it too tightly, it makes you weak. Because when you cry out, "This isn't fair," what you're really saying is, "I don't like this feeling, and I don't want to face it." But here's the rule. You don't grow by expecting fairness. You grow by facing reality and moving forward anyway. Look around you. Bad things happen to good people. Evil people sometimes win. Effort doesn't always bring reward. That's not negativity. That's life. And it's this very moment that separates the ordinary from the unstoppable. The ordinary person waits for fairness. The Stoic, on the other hand, the Stoic builds for themselves an inner strength so unshakable that nothing external can break it. That doesn't mean you become cold or emotionless. On the contrary, it means you stop waiting for the world to treat you right. And instead, you begin treating yourself right, no matter how the world turns. Seneca once said, "Sometimes, simply to go on living is an act of courage, especially when life seems unfair." So, what should you do? Instead of complaining, turn pain into fuel. Use it to sharpen your skills until you're impossible to ignore. Love deeply, but without expectation. Face betrayal, yet continue walking forward with calm dignity. That is the Stoic way, radical responsibility. Not because everything is always your fault, but because it is always your move. You can't control how life strikes, but you can always control how you respond. And it's that response, steady, composed, warrior-like, That makes you unstoppable. Fairness is never promised. But freedom is something you can always claim. One powerful choice at a time. Rule number 4. Focus on what you can control, and let go of the rest. The Stoics believed that your true power lies in a very small, very specific space. What is within your control? Everything else, let it go. Epictetus put it simply: make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. But what is the most common mistake people make? They try to control others. They anxiously try to predict the future. They cling to outcomes, and then they wonder why they're anxious, powerless, and angry. So what, then, is really in your hands? Only this: your thoughts, your choices, your actions, and your responses. Everything else, the opinions of others, random chance, sudden events, all of it lies outside your control. You cannot dictate the weather, but you can decide how to dress for it. You cannot force people to like you, but you can choose to treat them with kindness. You cannot control the economy, but you can choose to keep learning, manage your spending, and prepare for uncertainty. This shift may seem small, but it is enormous. It gives your power back to you, instead of leaving you dragged in 100 directions by things you cannot change. You stand steady, focused, like a captain steering the wheel through a storm. The Stoic does not scream at the wind. They grip the helm and guide the ship through the waves. That is why they stay calm when others panic, focused when others complain, disciplined when others drift. It's not about pretending the outside world doesn't matter. It's about choosing wisely what deserves your attention. And the truth is, 90% of the things people worry about lie completely outside their control. Here's a simple practice. Every time you feel stressed, ask yourself, is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, let go. Simple? Yes. Easy? Not at all. Powerful? Absolutely. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And when you truly live by this principle, others will notice. You become grounded, steady, nearly unshakable, not because you control everything, but because you control yourself, no matter what happens. Rule number 5. Practice voluntary hardship to build an unbreakable will. In a world addicted to comfort, discipline becomes a superpower. The Stoics didn't sit around waiting for life to test them. They tested themselves first, not to suffer, but to strengthen, not to punish, but to prepare. Seneca once wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition I feared?" That is voluntary hardship, deliberately stepping into discomfort, so that when real hardship arrives, you're ready to face it without fear. Seneca once advised, set aside a few days, live only on the simplest meals, dress in the roughest clothes, and ask yourself, is this what I used to fear? That is voluntary hardship, those moments when we deliberately step into discomfort, not to punish ourselves, but to forge a mind that will never break under pressure. Think about it. Today, most people do everything they can to avoid discomfort. They never skip a meal. They never sit in silence. They never go without convenience. And then, when life truly gets hard, what happens? They shatter. They panic. They blame others. But the Stoic is different. They have already trained for the dark days. They have already tasted hunger, fatigue, rejection, boredom, and struggle. even while life was still comfortable. That doesn't make them invincible, but it does make them far more adaptable than anyone else. Because willpower isn't built by watching motivational videos. It's forged in the very actions you don't want to do, yet you choose to do them. On purpose. So what does voluntary hardship look like in modern life? It could be fasting for 24 hours, reminding yourself that you control your cravings, not the other way around. It could be taking a cold shower when your mind screams no. It could be refusing a luxury you can afford, simply to sharpen your self-restraint, or as simple as waking up early to train, when your body desperately craves more sleep. These small choices, repeated day after day, begin to stack, and over time, you become a dangerous person in the best sense of the word. Not because you're cruel to yourself, but because you've discovered a simple truth. Comfort never makes you stronger, only challenge does. And when hardship arrives, as it always does, you don't run, you smile, because you've already walked through fire by choice. Remember this. Marcus Aurelius ruled during years of plagues, wars, and betrayals. Yet he still wrote pages filled with calm and clarity. Why? Because hardship was never a shock to him. He had always expected it. And when you expect hardship, it loses its power to paralyze you. So instead of asking, how can I make life easier? Ask, how can I make myself stronger? Practice being hungry. Practice being alone. Practice being cold, tired, rejected, bored, and staying focused through it all. Because one day, life will throw at you more than you think you can handle. And when that moment comes, you won't collapse, you'll rise. In the previous part, we talked about letting go of the obsession with results and learning to love the very process of effort itself. And from that, one truth becomes clear. When you tie your worth to discipline and action, you become unshakable. But there is another lesson the Stoics always remind us of. Learn to face death. It may sound dark, but in reality, it's not fear, it's an awakening. You see, most people live as if they have unlimited time. They postpone their dreams, cling to toxic habits, stay trapped in destructive relationships. They think, I'll start tomorrow. Next week I'll change. Next year, for sure. And yet, year after year, nothing changes. The Stoics were different. They often meditated on death, not to dwell in darkness, but to wake up. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That is not pessimism. That is freedom. Because only when you truly realize that life is short, and that the end could come at any moment, will you stop wasting it. Notice this. When you become deeply aware of how limited your time is, you stop scrolling for hours without purpose. You stop arguing over trivial things. You stop accepting mediocrity. Instead, you begin to create, to love, to act, right now. Not someday. Seneca put it best. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. We cannot control how long we live, but we can absolutely control how deeply we live. And the most dangerous lie you keep telling yourself is, there's still plenty of time. No, there isn't. That risk you keep avoiding, that project you keep postponing, that person you haven't forgiven, that change you keep delaying until next year, all of it is waiting for you to choose. Right now, the Stoic does not run away from death. He looks it straight in the face and says, you will not find me living a meaningless life. This awareness doesn't make him anxious, it makes him alive. Because the one who remembers death knows how to speak truthfully, to love wholeheartedly, to act with urgency, to let go of ego, and to stop fearing failure, since the greatest failure of all is a wasted life. So live as if every day were borrowed, because the truth is, it is. And from there, another principle becomes clear. Be a warrior for virtue, not a seeker of applause. Let's be honest. Most people today live only to chase recognition. They crave likes, praise, attention, or the sound of applause. But the Stoic is different. They don't let the crowd dictate their path. They don't move for the cheers. They act for one reason only: virtue. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." What does that mean? It means living with honor, even when no one is watching. Speaking the truth, even when no one claps. Keeping your word, even when it costs you. Training hard, even when nobody sees. That is virtue. That is the foundation of a soul that no money, no power can ever buy. And remember, virtue doesn't demand perfection. It only demands principles. But here lies the hard part. Doing what's right is almost always harder. Lying is easy. Pretending to impress is easy. Chasing approval is easy. But daring to stand alone? Choosing the right path instead of the easy one? That is the real test.